Om, Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame. Om Sri Aurobindo Mira is my refuge. Vande Matram, Namaste, good morning, welcome all of you. Today, the topic of this spiritual discussion will be on nationalist movement. So we are going to focus little bit on the initial phase of the nationalist movement as Sri Aurobindo took part there. Very little, of course, initial movement, initial things we will quote upon about his participation. So before going to the topic, of course, it will be in brief. Very little background we'll see about the, of course, the partition of Bengal that time in 1905, and that was a big partition of Bengal, East Bengal and West Bengal. So on that we will focus upon when the British government passed its Black Act of the partition of Bengal. Sri Aurobindo, it was actually, of course, he was in the picture there. So this is a Black Act of partition of Bengal. All over India there was a tremendous agitation. Public meetings were held everywhere to protest against it, against this Black Act of partition that took place in 1905. There was an outburst or a revolt. The whole nation arose from its slumber. The cry of Swaraj, Swadeshi spread over the land, and the great nationalist movement was openly started. This was the initial phase of the nationalist movement. Second, we'll quote something on the very interesting thing about Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo went again to Bengal, and this time he plunged deep into the political action during this political turmoil throughout agitation throughout India, Swadeshi Swaraj and all. Sri Aurobindo went again to Bengal and plunged deep into the political action. And the next year, when the Nationalist College was started, he threw away the Baroda job of 710 rupees per month and went to Kolkata as principal of new college for mere 150 rupees per month. Just see, this is the great sacrifice, and it is nationalism, the sacrifice for nationalism. It is a divine sacrifice also. Of course, I will little bit stress upon his yoga and politics here within a short while. We'll see. So 710 rupees he was earning in Baroda College. He just threw away that job and came into the principal of the National College with only 150 rupees per month. He wanted to work for the nation and never cared for money, because initially we have seen he threw away his civil service only just for this horse riding, and deliberately he did the so. So a Bengali paper, Yugantar, was there, a Bengali paper, newspaper issue, has been started for a few months earlier to preach upon revolt and absolute denial of British rule. So this was the Yugantar Patrika magazine you have seen, you have heard, that has been started before Sri Aurobindo reached there. And Sri Aurobindo wrote several opening articles in the early numbers. And though the editor was his brother Barin. This for the Yugantar that magazine, the editor was his own brother Barin. It had as its chief writer three of the ablest young men in Bengal, and immediately gained an immense influence. The magazine got very good response, and throughout Bengal it was very much popular initially and within a short span of time. Especially when one of the sub-editors was prosecuted, and under Sri Aurobindo's orders, the Yugantara refused to defend itself in a British court. Its prestige and influence increased immensely. That was the condition. That was the prestige of this paper went immensely. Especially, I will try to quote it again. Especially when one of the sub-editor was persecuted by the British Council, British government, British rulers, And under Sri Aurobindo's order, the Yugantara refused to defend itself in the British court. Refused. It was the order of Sri Aurobindo. It refused to defend itself in the British court for the Yugantara. Its prestige and influence increased immensely in the land of this great Bengal. So that was the beginning period of that period. So now we will quote again about his real thing, real scenario. Little bit we'll see. So yoga, and will stress upon his before going to this nationalist movement. Will a little bit focus upon his yoga and politics of his Sri Aurobindo's life. And we know, and Sri Aurobindo has quoted initially, mine was the side door entry into the spiritual life, because that time yoga and nothing was there. But actually, initially, there in the remarks of this Raja Gaikwad of Baroda, so he had observed about his nature. If you, as per his own language, when you will ask some questions to Sri Aurobindo or Aurobindo Babu, that time he was not Sri Aurobindo, he was Aurobindo only, Aurobindo Ghosh. He will simply yes answer with very high answer, very small answer, yes or no, or he will keep silent. So that this with from this observation, from this Gaikwad was observing very nicely. This there is something very of course yogic in it. That time his yogic life was not started, and of course Sri Aurobindo has quoted that mine was the side door entry into spiritual life. Now we'll see about his yoga and politics in the career of Sri Aurobindo. To little bit we'll see. But at that time, he had not. He did not want to practice yoga. It was not there. It was not in his mind. It was beyond his expectation. When a friend, seeing his natural bent, asked him to do so to do yoga, he replied, "A yoga which requires me to give up the world is not for me. I have to liberate my country." That time, see, this is the yogi, this is the yoga. So very immense one beautiful observation is there. After this is the initial phase, then second phase is the yogic period, and the third period is actually the supramentalization period of supramentalization, that life and this experience it was there quoted, we know. So there is a combining all these three there is a very beautiful, very remarkable sentence, of course. Revolutionary Sri Aurobindo and Yogi Sri Aurobindo stand side by side in his supramental personality. So I will quote it again. Revolutionary Sri Aurobindo and Yogi Sri Aurobindo stand side by side in his supramental personality. Just imagine how the three are concerted and united in a single sentence, that a glorious sentence and a glorious observation. So here a yoga Sri Aurobindo quotes, denying, because he does not have any interest for politics, yoga rather. So he quotes it is in his own voice, "Ye yoga which requires me to give up the world is not for me. I have to liberate my country. First my country, then country means external liberation, then the internal liberation." So initially, afterwards we have seen the mother has quoted, a single freedom could not satisfy. It is it is for Sri Aurobindo. A single freedom could not satisfy. His being had grown immeasurable. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. What he had done was to prepare a field. So it was the latter phase description. And also, of course, mother has told, I am a deputy of the aspiring world. My spirit's liberty I ask for all. Here I have to serve in the course in the initial phase as a nationalist leader, nationalist movement follower and guide. So he said, I have to liberate the country. So this worldly life and all, he was detached. About this yoga, he was keeping silent. He was not that much interested. Then next, he felt that a solitary salvation, leaving the world to its fate, was not the right thing for him. So he had the very much interesting vision. Of course, it is destined. He was destined because he is the Lord he is the divine. We are not able to comment upon his divinization because he is the divine, and his only his comments is we are quoting up. A solitary salvation, salvation of already we have seen a single freedom could not satisfy. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. Her light and her force he asked for earth and men, but vain was the human power and the human love to break the earth's seal of ignorance and faith. So what happened? One thing he had to do his force was seemed now an infant's grasp. Heaven was too high for his outstretched hands to seize. Then what happened? His fast surrender was his only strength. That was the second period of his time. After this revolutionary period, nationalist movement period, then he came the yogi period. So he says, quotes here, a solitary salvation, leaving the world to its fate. That was the purpose, objective, the entirety of this old yoga. But this yoga is the yoga of transformation. Of course, it was not started, but this condition he has provided there. A solitary salvation, leaving the world to its fate, was not the right thing for him. He can do it, is not right thing for him. Again he quotes, it was the time of country fast. It was the time of country fast. Then about his own personal revelation or the spirit's freedom and greatness, that is later, he said later. But then something happened which showed him the yoga gives power and he wanted the power to liberate it. There was a feeling, there was actually experience that I should get the strength from yoga and I must liberate the country. This power of yoga will liberate the country. So it is a strange story, not at unusual in India. Barin, so he got the glimpse. Barin had a fever, violent chilling fever, hill fever, and he was being treated, but the fever did not go. That time, one Naga sannyasi happened to come wandering by. This was the divine connection. He took a glass full of water, cut it crosswise with a knife while chanting the mantra, and asked Barin to drink it, that mantra water. And almost in a moment, the fever left him. Then there was a big proof, direct proof of the power of yoga, Sri Aurobindo got. So when I turned to yoga during the course, he said much later, and I resolved to practice it. Went into and resolved to practice it. I did it in the spirit and with the prayer. If thou art, the prayer was like this, if thou art, then thou knowest my heart. Thou knowest that I don't ask for mukti, that salvation mukti I don't want. I don't ask for anything which others ask for. I am not like others, what they are asking, I don't ask for. I ask only for strength to uplift my nation. This yogic strength I need what for? To uplift my nation. I ask only to be allowed to work for the people whom I love. Just imagine what is the wonderful description it is given. Therefore, when he did start yoga, there was no conflict or wavering between yoga and politics. He felt everything is same. So simultaneously it can be practiced, it can be carried out. And he carried on both without an opposition between them. There was defined, everything is same, and it is unidirectional, it can go side by side. Thus then Sri Aurobindo has a very nice observation, the Sanatana Dharma, that is nationalism. So combining all these things, he quotes Sanatana Dharma, that is nationalism. So we'll see about the nationalist movement. Will conclude the increasing non-cooperation and passive resistance to make the foreign government's task difficult or impossible. Number one, creating a universal unrest to wear down repression. Finally, if need be, the open revolt all over the country. The plan includes, whatever the plan, to boycott of British trade, national schools, arbitration of court for the people, voluntary forces. Then Sri Aurobindo wrote series of articles for passive resistance and under series developing the political philosophy of the revolution. So his nationalist movement started.